Let it begin.
Mind sciences, or the study of human behavior in relation to the mind, is the newest of all the arts. It's less than 100 years old. And it is by far the one that is most cloaked in secrecy.
The origins of psychological warfare were in Nazi Germany, and in the Nazi ideology they had something that was called Weltanschauungskrieg, which means worldview warfare. The idea for them was imposing the Nazi worldview on the countries that they had occupied. The Americans picked up this idea, created an American version of it, and called that psychological warfare. In trying to understand psychological warfare and in trying to understand the American approach to the post-war efforts to control people's minds, both as individuals and on a mass scale, there's a lot of illusions about how that was done. Were Nazis involved in that process? Yes, they were.
Project Paperclip was a United States government-sanctioned CIA operation for the importation of Nazi and fascist scientists into the United States. Their statement was simply this: if we don't bring these people into this country and contain them, then our enemies, the Soviet Union, will get them. The first wave was to bring these scientists. There was 700 odd propulsion scientists, and then there were some 600 and some odd mind sciences people that they brought in. The CIA was given the responsibility of actually placing the individuals out of Project Paperclip into the military-industrial complex, including our colleges and universities. Mind control was a psychological warfare weapon that Adolf Hitler regarded as the answer for taking over the entire planet. The name for the mind control research in this country was MKUltra.
MKUltra was one program of a series of programs that came out of the CIA to experiment with different types of mind control, using drugs, using electroshock, using insulin shock, and other techniques.
I think that the goal for those people who planned the program was very straightforward. It was an attempt to figure out a way to interrogate people and to learn how to protect their own agents against control by others. If you put someone in a position of being disabled by not feeding them or not allowing them to sleep or overwhelming them with sound, if you use massive shock treatment and you give people massive doses of drugs such as PCP or mescaline or amphetamines or LSD. And if you put them in periods of darkness where they can't predict from one minute to another what is going to happen next, so they're always dreading, there's no consistency to sort of what's going to happen, anybody can be put in a position of being open to brainwashing. Ewan Cameron was probably the foremost psychiatrist of his time in the 1950s. He was using high-tech sound techniques. He was using multiple kinds of loop recorders to force people to listen to recorded messages 24 hours a day for weeks on end to basically destroy people's thinking patterns.
Lysergic acid into the vein, and he patted me on the shoulder and said, "Now there, lassie, we'll see you later." And I started to feel very frightened, and the fright became a terror. And I sort of began throwing myself from one side of the room to the other. I didn't know what to do to stop this feeling. It felt like my bones were melting, that I just didn't know who I was anymore.
This is not just break-ins at people's homes. It's not just invasions of privacy by illegal wiretapping. This is an invasion of a person's mind. And that is about as profound an injury, except for loss of life, that the government can impose.
This was a post-Nazi program, if you will. It was an Americanization.
I've often made the statement, and I still make it flippantly, the Nazis didn't lose the war. They just had to move.
Now it's 50 years later. Now they're much more clever, they're much more sophisticated. They have a lot more money to spend.
Was disrupted because of the compound's effect. Although his vision was not impaired, he found it difficult to focus his attention on the next objective. His physical actions were noticeably slower. He felt compelled to disobey his instructions.
Did Sergeant Ditches give you any instructions about what you were supposed to do tomorrow? Tomorrow? What is today, Thursday? Today's Thursday. Today's Thursday. Well...
Wars are not won on the battlefield. They're won in the minds of the people.
She claims that George Bush Sr. used ancient magical hand signals to directly control her subconscious mind. She also claims that Bill Clinton was under mind control. In covertly recorded off-air transmissions from the Bush-Clinton presidential election campaign in the 1990s, we can see that Bill Clinton was nothing more than a puppet to the puppet masters which placed him in the White House. Bill Clinton's demeanor seems to be similar to a person who is under a hypnotic trance.
I love you. Can't do any more. We'll do some more. We'll do some more. I'll do some more final time. taught, we don't all taught all of that.
So I wanted to finish the thought here. That's the one break we have to hit live. It's been around the world, but it's hard to believe we're being watched in 151 countries. Crazy. Ted Turner changed the world. Big fan of yours. He would serve you exactly. I'm really surprised. He's ready. What's he got left in the game? After you're elected. Think about it. That's for sure. Great guy to work for, too.
Remember that every single man, woman, and child in the state of South Carolina awakens to a freer, safer world because of George Bush. I would remind people every single morning we all awaken to a safer, freer world because of George Bush. And Nicole, I would remind you and the people of Florence that all of us awaken every single day to a freer, safer world because of George Bush. They themselves awaken every single day to a freer, safer world because of George Bush.
Official U.S. policy has consistently regarded Tibet as a part of China, although an autonomous region within China. We have no evidence at this point that the Chinese government is engaged in any policy or in any actions aimed at wiping out the Tibetans or, in short, reflecting a policy of genocide either against the Tibetan people themselves or against their culture.
At one point in this interview, we see that his mind control programming breaks down.
What about self-determination for Tibetans?
On the BBC Newsnight program, we see a Chinese government minister also displaying signs of heavy mind control.
Can you explain to us on the political situation why there has been no response from your government to the Dalai Lama's proposal in Strasbourg of nearly 3 years ago now about an arrangement between him and fellow Tibetans and your government?
In 1988 in Strasbourg, the Dalai Lama proposed to make Tibet a democratic political entity governed by itself, which maintains relations of alliance with China. And what does it mean?
Well, it's suggesting, he's suggesting that they be given autonomy in internal affairs, that they give to you
I just
control.
Quote what he said in his proposal. It's nothing new. We think it's nothing new, but another version of the statement that China holds only suzerainty, not sovereignty over Tibet. We heard of this kind of clamoring at the beginning of this century in order to divide China. That phrase also means that the Dalai Lama advocates Tibetan independence. And we have repeatedly said that China's sovereignty over Tibet can never be denied. Neither independence nor semi-independence or disguised independence will be tolerated. Thirdly, the Dalai Lama's proposal favored transforming Tibet into a peace zone or a buffer state among the great powers through demilitarization or neutrality. But a peace zone or neutral zone involves the problem of state sovereignty and international safeguards. So it is out of the question for a country to establish in one of its regions a peace zone or a neutral zone with its neighbors.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322. Before we go, you and George Bush were both members of Skull and Bones, the secret society at Yale. The rule is, if someone mentions Skull and Bones, you walk out of the room. If you're both in a you're both in a presidential debate, and the moderator says Skull and Bones, do you both leave the podiums?
I doubt it.
You'll hang in there.
I think you'll see both of us have a terrific... You know, I'd love to have a debate with the president right now.
The 2.7 million people who wear our country's uniform, active, guard, and reserve, comprise the finest military in the history of the world. They stand ready to face down any threat, anytime, anywhere.
Let it begin.